So it's been a few weeks now with the Sony A7V, and I don't know if I'm more amazed or just a little meh and dazed, but clearly confused for several key reasons and still also quite content. And I'll show you, yet I could place blame at the camera itself while knowing that all this could get ironed out over time with firmware updates. Or this might be all on me and the need to get my feet under it more and actually learn the camera as you do over time. Zooming out on my 18mm and dynamic active stabilization. So one thing I would typically never use is, okay, here I am in 8000 ISO. I'm in S-Log 3. However, in the brief time that I've had it, I put down all my other cameras and I've just used the 5 quite heavily. So I think it's worth seeing some footage, not just in the studio, but out in the real world, using this hybrid camera, how I imagine most of you will. And then my hope that this could be my one and done travel hybrid dad cam. That, and this is also important, may also be an incredible professional client camera for photo, like a budget A1 II, while simultaneously being an extremely reliable video camera that you can fully rig up and has better resolution than my FX3 and great thermals and with better dynamic range. So this is my first impressions of the Sony A7V. So with all of this running in the background, I think it's worth getting a brief look at the A7V as it is today, so I can share my initial thoughts with you if you are in fact considering buying or upgrading to this camera. Now, if you are considering picking up the A7V as a Sony shooter already, as an upgrade from your A7 IV or whatever, or you are considering moving to a new ecosystem altogether, or just hate watching this because it's Sony, it's worth knowing that although I'm coming at this as a typical Sony shooter, I'm far from exclusively that, as I love and have loved many others like my Nikons, Fujis, Canon, and my Lumix. And even with Sony of late, typically I prefer either the A7C bodies or the FX body. So the handling of this camera, and not just because of the new flip tilty screen thing, but as a brand agnostic who is also considering the Nikon ZR and the Lumix S1 II, I can also objectively say this about Sony, and I hate to be this endlessly satisfied camera guy, but I still think Sony's best camera has yet to be released. In fact, could have been already if you take their current lineup and swap parts around into a Frankenstein's monster of a mashup, something Sony could do tomorrow. Well, if they wanted, like the A1 II or the A9 III in the FX6 body, or even more niche, I loved my ZV-E1, but imagine that in the A7C2's body, like an A7CS. But specifically here, what they could have done months ago, and I say this as a happy owner of the FX2, and I feel your judgment and or pity, which is a separate video because I think most people miss this about the FX2, but I'd be a fool not to admit that I wish the A7V sensor was in that body, and with this same flip tilty screeny thing, and then of course with open gauge or 6K, but for me personally, none of that was a deal breaker. Well, I can still acknowledge for others that it may be, and for completely valid reasons, because as I always say, there are an infinite ways to skin a cat, which I have no idea what that really means, but what I'm saying is there's a multitude of ways to enjoy a camera. So knowing that this is my frame of reference, I can still examine this camera for what it is for me and not what I or someone else prefers that it was. And with that POV, for me, with my cameras, when not making money with them, they are meant to be for fun. Remember that? And used to document my life, my family, and my travel. So my first quick trip with the A7V as my dad cam was to a place called Solvang, California over the holidays. And I also brought 2 compact lenses, and I swear to you, I'm not trolling you with this first lens because it was a legit experiment. Since the last time I was here, I brought the A7C II, which if you didn't know, shares the same 33 megapixel sensor as the A7 IV. So I wanted to try to get some direct comparison shots since it's basically the A7 IV versus the A7V, but it didn't quite work out. And just to know, I do plan on doing a more thorough comparison with the FX2 and the A7V in a separate video, and we'll share some low light footage of them here in a few. But on this trip, I just want to enjoy some time away with my family.
Rolling. Go for it.
Sound? Rolling. Sound.
But I immediately regretted not bringing my favorite travel lens for how I shoot Tamron's 20-40. But like I said, the A7V was just birthed, and there has been some growing pains, and third-party lenses have not always been reliable straight out of the not open gate. So maybe it was better I brought this dopey little 28-60 kit lens from Sony. But since then, I've also tested out a bunch of non-native lenses with mixed results. So I've been testing out all my third-party lenses just to see how good they are. And it seems to be now, for some reason, working a lot better than it initially did with my Tamron and my Viltrox. But yeah, this Rokinon 18 is working pretty good. Backlit and all. In dynamic active with the 18mm f2.8 Samyang's or Rokinon's 18mm. It's a really good ultra wide lightweight lens. Okay, so here's a tricky lens. This is my Viltrox 35 f1.2. So I'm in dynamic stabilization, so that's why this is cropped in even further on a 35, which you don't want to vlog on. But right now, the eye autofocus is super sticky. So I don't know if it's all third-party lenses. This is a newer lens, so that could be one of the things that I knew in advance and had some arrangement with Sony. I don't know how this third-party lens system works, but it is sticky. That's why I'm looking at it. And yeah, so f1.2, and it's heavy. Yeah, I actually really love this lens, so I'm happy it's working. Okay, because it's been raining, I haven't been able to try a lot of tests out, including my stabilization. But I did want to try this Sony 20mm f1.8 to see if native Sony lenses do in fact work better. This lens is a fantastic lens, and it is a higher quality lens than some of these third party. So it's probably not an apples to apples comparison. And since it is raining, it is a good chance to do some weather sealing tests. I'm obviously not going to leave it just in a downpour. It is just misting, so to speak. But yeah, I do feel comfortable, like I do with most Sony cameras, using it in this kind of weather. But again, it's starting to come down a bit faster, so I'm probably going to take this inside. All right. Yeah, this also happened when the A7C II launched, and then Sony gave us a 2.0 firmware that, along with other third-party lenses getting firmware updates too, got the camera working flawlessly from then on out. But honestly, this camera with my Viltrox 50 f2, which is one of my favorite little portrait lenses, as there's so much character in it. And I took that to a friend's house for Christmas Eve, and weirdly, the A7V just kept freezing up. So much so I had to keep taking out the battery and then just replace it when I still know it had like 80% juice. And this even happened a few times in solvang, even with this little stupid Sony lens that I secretly love and shy away from anyone seeing me use it, especially on this body, just like I like putting this APS-C kit lens on my FX2, which is triggering for many, I know, but honestly in solvang, it did the job. Now, coming back from my trip, I have more questions than answers, especially shooting at night, which I'll show you, and I'm still struggling to see what the second unofficial base ISO in S-Cinetone is, because CVP said it was 1250, but my eyes were telling me that it was 1000, so I shot a bunch in 1000 that may be terrible. Okay, so here's the conundrum. Am I at the unofficial second base ISO in their S-Cinetone or no picture profile? I'm at 1250. 1000 and 800. So looking at 800 looks pretty noisy in the shadows over there. Let me bump that again to 1000. Did that clean up dramatically? And 1250. So here we are at the base of 100. I'm at f1.8, 150 the shutter. So we're gonna go up. This is where it typically is on the A7 IV. And this is where allegedly it is 1000, or is it this? Oh, and for some dumb reason here, I shot this in 1080p, so that crop is even croppier, which I think actually helps illustrate this better when the noise reduction kicks in. But that's 1600, 2000. I mean, it looks clean at 2000. We're at 3200, which would be FX30's S-Log3, my VNDs. So that's 3200. Looks pretty clean. All right, let me check. But there's also a bunch of clean steps that go from 1000 up. Okay, so one thing I would typically never use is auto ISO, but because it seems like there's a lot of clean range between all of these ISOs in the S Cinetone right now, maxing out at 1000, and I shouldn't really be lower than 100 on this day. I am finding that you can use auto ISO a little bit more. So let me go into the shade. Spot metering center. We're at 320. And this is all great, especially when compared to the A7 IV's 500 in S Cinetone. Come on. And even excellent compared to the FX3's 2000 in S Cinetone, especially since the 7.5's 2000 is also really clean. My shutter is cranked though. And of course, I know what you're saying. You're supposed to only shoot an S-Log3 unless you're a low IQ noob. And maybe you're right. So here. Okay, so here I am at 8000 ISO and S-Log3 on the A7 V. I have not played with S-Log3 that much to really see what the noise looks like compared to, say, the FX2 or A7 IV. But I do have a 35mm f1.2 lens, the Viltrox lens, which the eye autofocus is actually working really well right now. So yeah, I don't know. I think this lens is much better performing than, say, my Tamron or the other Viltrox, the 50 f2. But yeah, we are in the dark. I have some ambient sort of street lighting happening. Okay, quickly, this is the FX2 at 8000 ISO in S-Log3. Same situation, same lighting condition. Yeah, definitely same lens and f1.2. So let me just bump it up. Okay, now we are at the 51,200. Okay, here we are at 51,200 in S-Log3. Now here is 102,400. Pitch black again in S-Log3 on the FX2, roughly the same as the A7 IV or the A7C2. Okay, so here we are at 102,400 in S-Log3. Yeah. Now, let me put it down to 8,000. Okay, just for a strange point of comparison here, this is also at ISO 8000, but in S Cinetone, which I believe the second non-official base is 1000, but we're at 8000, which the S-Log3 is. Okay, so here we are in auto ISO in S Cinetone. Something I typically wouldn't use, but maybe on the A7 V, you can use it. Not too bad. Again, pitch black out. This is sort of amazing. So if I'm gonna go down to 12,800. Okay, so just for the fun of it, this is my FX3, also at 12,800, but I'm in S-Log3. But yeah, we are in the dark. I have some ambient sort of street lighting happening. But yeah, what does it look like? Pitch black. crazy. So S-Log3 looks great, and I also played around with my Sony A7V and my Helios 44-2 at night with my monitoring LUT loaded in camera, the same LUT I use on my editing timeline too, because the Rec 709 conversion LUT that you've been seeing this whole time is from GAMUT. It's really easy to use, and I'm lazy, and it's only $25, and I'm also cheap. But honestly, I'm still an S-Cinetone person because in most cases, 1000 ISO as a second base or 1250 is more useful than 8000 for me. Also because I don't just typically use S-Cinetone in video, I use it in photo as well. However, it is customized. I create my own profiles used like LUTs, which is also important now because RAW support is still limited. And I've done multiple videos on this topic and how to customize your picture profiles linked below. So I do this in the profiles menu where I tweak them heavily. One of which you are looking at now on my ZV-E10, like I've used in all my Sonys in the last 6 years. But for some reason, the A7V removed the color depth feature, which allows you to change each color individually within the profile. And this is a bizarre omission here. And so now I've been trying to find a creative look that works instead, but I'm still working on it. Okay, so this is the look portrait, I believe. Since I can't change the color depth in any of these picture profiles, I'm using these creative looks instead. So let me go to the picture profile that I created. Okay, so this is the picture profile that I customized. This is looking a bit more neutral. I have the ISO and auto just for fun. Checking out dynamic range as well. So I didn't change any other settings. It's just the picture profile, which is based on the S-Cinetone color space. And I don't know, I'm not even sure I like this look anymore. Let me go back and look. Yeah, a crazy feature that the A7V has that was carried over from the FX2 and the A7C2, which I'm sure many will scoff at using, and this is a sidebar, but my all-time favorite kit lens is Lumix's 18-40. So this has been my workaround by turning my 18mm prime into a zoom in video. And don't forget, you can also crop in with dynamic stabilization 4 times, also if you're in APS-C crop mode. So I'm in crop mode on an 18. Let me zoom out. Okay, and this is crop. And this is uncropped. And this is dynamic active. And this is just active stabilization. And standard. And off. So one thing that I often don't hear people talking about is this digital zoom in video. 18mm active stabilization. So this is an 18mm f2.8. So let me zoom in 1.2 times, 1.4 times, keep going 2 times, 2.4, 2.8, 3.1, and 4 times zoom on an 18mm. This is not a zoom lens, it is my prime, a very cheap, very small, very compact prime. So do you want to do this in video often? Maybe not. Can you do it with 33 megapixels? And this downsampled 7K? You can. And I did. And speaking of crops, the A7V still has this controversial crop in the slow and quick mode, but I've only had time to shoot a bit of high frame rate tests for a narrative short that I've been working on, but you do get 240 frames per second in 1080p, and also 4K 120 frames with the substantial crop, but still 4K and amazing, and a basically cropless 4K 60 with some caveats. And also because of the showers here in LA, I haven't been able to go outside much to do my typical favorite 2 tests, which will be coming. My stabilization Sunday sun on a bike test, which I do with all my cameras from my Lumix to my Fuji to Nikon and other Sonys. followed by my POV photo walk test, which I also do with every camera I've ever had. So I'm looking forward when it stops raining to compare the A7V to all my cameras in my neighborhood suburban park. So other than those videos coming, this is not one of those spec'd out videos. So if you need one of those in the interim, I want to share a link with you in the description to a new creator I just stumbled upon called Aperture Live, who covers the details of this camera really well. And I will also be sharing a more thorough long-form video on how I rig up this camera, as I have done a short about this already, and I was pleasantly surprised to find how well my FX3 and 2 parts work for the A7V. This rig will then allow me to run my next test, the A7V, in real-world working conditions on a job, so hopefully I won't regret using this instead of an FX3 on a client shoot. But until then, there's still a lot I can't conclusively say other than almost all cameras of late launch with this silly chatter about them, but then gain favor over time from those who actually end up using the camera on the day-to-day. But again, out of the gate, well, after the open gate debate, there's a lot to love about the A7V, and not just with this McFlippy tilter guy, but with the improved rolling shutter, the low light performance, 4K 60, making this a proper upgrade while also not blindly ignoring that there are some real quirks too that could be worrying. So all I do know now is I need more time before my mind is fully made up, but the promise of the battery life, the thermals, well again, pushing the speed and dynamic range is there, as I presume the future is bright for the A7V. As usually an optimistic person, but for now, I'm just a little bit more of a mystic man, but I'm always open to being wrong. So I have a bunch more videos about videos like this on the way, so consider following along to find out, and thanks guys, bye.